Yeah, what's your name?
My name is Caleb Widoga. Curious. Can I count on you to return the favor? I studied when I was younger, and then I gave it up for a while. I've picked it up again recently, so you know, it's all book learned. I'm following your lead here. This is your quest. I have things that I need to do that are not here, and I'm going to need help. I understand. Thank you, because I would not be alive if you had not. You saved my life, so thank you.
No problem.
Yesterday was really not great.
Yeah, well, we'll do better today, right?
Sure we will. Meeting and teaming up has been a good thing.
Oh, yes, very good. I know everyone else makes fun of your smell, but I don't smell nothing.
That's what I like about you. see the sun is coming up, but you can still see one or two up there. You see that one?
The stars?
That's a planet, that one. That's another place.
No, we're on the planet.
It is hard to believe, but I was able to do I danced the waltz and the tarantelle. It's been many years.
Well, you should show me sometime, because I want to see it.
I'm very much out of practice, and...
You do it when nobody's watching, okay?
I can see you as a waltzer. That makes sense.
It does, a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm really good at the waltz. Yeah, they taught me the same time I learned piano.
You're always the better dancer than the Astrid. You're so good.
I'm sure Astrid loves you very much.
Good morning.
Knew it had to be done. In the middle of the night, placed it against the door to the home, and I set it on fire.
It is one of the Greens. Hello, Green. It's been a while since I've seen you. Oh, Lordy. Okay. Where are we at? What we doing? Chapter 23. Wait, what? Chapter 24. Let's do this. Ah, nice. Good to see you again. Ooh, excuse me. Well, today we are just doing final edits on an audiobook. Nice. Hooray for working from home. Not an option with my current job.
Chapter 24. They had to hide the bodies, so that if the family Yeren came to investigate why their patrol had not yet returned, it would take some time to find them. "We might drag them off into the trees and hide them behind cut branches," said Jorman. Lauren was uncomfortably reminded of when she had first met Damaris, who had slain a squadron of constables and had slain a squadron of constables and forced Lauren to help her men bury the bodies. As she studied the grim look on Annis's face, Lauren wondered if the girl was thinking the same thing. "Too easy to find," said Shion. "They will see the hewn trees, and then they will know what to look for." "Throw them in the river," said Uzo. "No doubt the bodies will wash up on the bank, but it will be a ways downstream. It is fastest, and will not be any easier for searchers to discover than anything else we might do." So it was agreed. The mystics took care of the grisly work. Chet donned a new change of dry clothes and huddled off to the side under 3 cloaks, trying to dispel his chill. Lauren wanted to be with him, but he was still dour after watching the mystics slay their foes. It seemed distance was what he needed now, and so she gave it to him. The ride would warm him anyway, as well as the heat from his horse's body. As the others dragged the corpses to the log bridge and threw them off, Shion rode back across the bridge and downriver a ways. She soon returned with Annis's horse. Its recovery seemed to be the only bit of good news from the whole affair. All of them readied to ride on. Lauren saw that Annis was staring down at the ground and went over to the girl. "What is wrong?" "It is my fault we were discovered," said Annis. "If I had not slipped, they would not have seen us." Lauren shook her head. "No, any one of us could have done the same. You should not blame yourself." Annis looked around at the rest of the party and frowned. "I should not have come. It was the foolish notion of a foolish girl. I am no warrior." "I would call you many things before I called you foolish," said Lauren, putting a hand on her shoulder. "Strength of arms is not the only worthy quality in this world. A great enough wit will not only triumph over might, but make it look a fool. I value your mind far more highly than a simple swordsman." That drew a small smile from Annis, though the girl did not look entirely convinced.
Big old clicky-click.
Annis, though the girl did not look entirely convinced. They rode hard once they set out, with Shion scouting the way again. Gone was their high mood of that morning. No one spoke, but only watched the road as it passed beneath the horses' hooves. They drew upon Dahab just before twilight. The clouds had mostly dissipated from the sky, and half the sun showed above the horizon to light the land. When they crested the last rise, the whole party stopped in awe. North of them, the river they had crossed met an even greater waterway that ran south. But almost immediately, it reached a high shelf in the land and fell off into a great waterfall. "There is the Nelos," said Uzo, pointing to the river. "It flies away south until it reaches the Sky Tongue, which flows into the Great Bay many leagues away." But Lauren could not speak. As beautiful as it was, she had no eyes for the river, or even for the waterfall it formed. She could look only at the shelf, upon which was built the city of Dahab. Just as she had seen in her dream, it was built in 2 levels. Both held palaces and mansions aplenty, and all of them with gold trim. The dying sun upon the gold made the whole place shine like a jewel in firelight, so that they could not long observe it without having to shield their eyes. Upon the higher level were built grander mansions, and ones fairer to look at.
Morning, Erica. How you doing?
Many of them were made of white marble that gleamed nearly as bright as the gold, and Lauren was reminded of the High King's palace. But even a stranger could see that the true power rested in the city's bottom layer. There the buildings were more solid, more sinister, and far older from the look of them. It was not only the sight of the city that struck Lauren dumb, but the fact that she beheld it in truth for the second time. She could not be sure, but she thought she even saw the pillar of rock where Gregor had held Annis, Jem, and Chet over the abyss. Suddenly she was struck with terror at the thought of bringing her friends here.
I hear that, Erica.
She wanted to turn back, to spur Midnight into the jungle and hide away, never to return. Instead, she nudged the horse's side. "Onwards," she said. "We should try to reach it before the moon's rise." "Your dreams are not the future," she told herself. "You are not so important that the elves would give you that gift." But that did nothing to quell the fear in her heart. As they neared the city, 3 buildings in the lower level caught their eye. They were massive, flat on top, but with sloping sides, so that they almost resembled pyramids. Flat on top, but with sloping sides, so that they almost resembled pyramids. They were wrought all in black granite, and the style looked familiar to Lauren. Then she realized that they looked very similar to the Academy of Wizards on the seat. But while the Academy stood tall and proud, these mansions sat like spiders in the shadows. Even their bronze trim looked like crooked legs, coiled before springing forth to snatch some unwary prey. "Those buildings are the homes of the family Yeren," said Uzo, his jaw clenched. "If there are answers for us in this city, it will be there." "A great many of your kin must dwell here," said Jem, looking over to Annis. "Have you not visited the city before?" "No. Before the journey that brought me to Cabris, I had never left the seat." Annis straightened suddenly in her saddle and turned to Lauren with a curious expression. "I have only just now realized that was my first journey away from home, and I am still upon it. It has been 8 months since I saw the place where I was raised. What a long and wandering road it has been." That gave Lauren pause as well. Had it really been so close to a year since she left the Birchwood? Her birthday had passed sometime in Octus, unmarked. She had been in the Great Rocks then, and Jordell had been alive. But that day had never held great importance for her, since her parents had never celebrated it. Not far from the city, they had to rejoin the main road.
Not background noises, Green. It's tongue clicks. I'll try to highlight one the next time I nuke it.
It was close enough that Yeren would have little warning, even if they were spotted, but still they did not wish to be noticed. Therefore they split up and entered the city in 2s and 3s. Chet and Lauren rode in together and reached the city's gates just as the last of twilight faded from the sky. The guards did not even seem to notice them riding alongside the trading carts and wagons. Once inside the city walls, they passed a few streets and then regrouped with the rest of the party.
Okay, there was one. So, I don't know if you can hear it over stream sound quality.
Then regrouped with...
But we open up the file, and then you can see that there's like a sort of a nice normal looking little waveform here, and then there's this ugliness. You see that? And so I don't know how well this will play over stream, but this is a section of the vowel sound on loop. And this is the click on loop. It's a very high pitched click. And so Audition heals it. And now
Then regrouped with the rest of the...
no more annoying click.
with the rest of the party.
Except there's another one over here. So you can see it again.
Rest of the party. Then Uzo led them on through the winding streets. Despite the ominous presence of the Yeren mansions, which were visible over the neighboring buildings, the rest of the city seemed a far less sinister place than Lauren had expected. The knowledge that Dahab was the ancient home of the family Yeren had made her think it would be some dark den of evil. But in fact, the buildings looked much the same as they did anywhere else, except that here they were often walled with a reddish-brown plaster and had roofs of red tiles made with clay. The people talked and laughed and joked as in any city Lauren had visited so far, and she saw many street performers here, which had been a rarity in Cabris and Wellmont. Even upon the high king's seat they were not so plentiful. She saw dancers swinging wide staves that were set on fire, and 2 duelists performing an elegant dance with blunted swords. One woman beckoned to wide-headed snakes on the ground, and at her command they bobbed and weaved into intricate patterns like whirlpools. As they neared the Black Mansions, Lauren saw that not only were they built close to one another, but they were in fact in a sort of compound, with a single great wall that surrounded all 3 of them. Uzo led them in a wandering path around the wall, as though they were merely travelers taking in the city's sights. But they all studied the place surreptitiously, eyeing the few gates, which were closed, and the many guards that patrolled the ramparts. When they finished their circle, they stopped at a tavern. There was no stable, but there was a long post outside where they could tie their horses, and a servant girl there who Lauren paid to watch the steeds. Inside they found a cheery room full of many patrons. The tables were low, and each was surrounded by cushions placed directly on the ground. Lauren smelled wine and ale, but also a sweet, spiced scent she could not place. "Tea," said Uzo, lifting his nose and taking a deep sniff. "Sky above, it smells wonderful." At a table near the back of the room, they ordered ale and wine and tea for Uzo. They waited for the drinks to be delivered before they spoke. When they had all had a few sips, Lauren leaned forwards. "What can we expect inside the Yeren walls?" she asked Uzo in a low voice. Uzo shrugged. "I have only visited this city twice before," he said, "and I have never been inside the Yeren dwellings. They permit no outsiders to come within, except for important guests on official business, usually nobility." Lauren thought of how she and Jordell had infiltrated the Shade Fortress in the Great Rocks. "Mayhap we could disguise ourselves as guards. That might get us inside." But Naya shook her head. "We could never pass for Yerens. Did you not see the guards' helmets? The fronts are open, so that their faces are plain to see." "At least Uzo could get in," said Lauren. "He comes from Feldemar and has the look." Naya rolled her eyes. "You must listen better. None but Yerens are permitted inside the wall. Uzo's skin is not enough. They are a family. They know each other. He would be recognized, or rather, he would not be, and therein lies the problem." Lauren's face flushed with embarrassment, which she tried to pass off. "What, then?" To everyone's surprise, Jem spoke up. "Are there other buildings inside the wall?" They all looked to Uzo, but he shrugged. "I do not know for certain." "But there would have to be," said Weath. "We see only their great manors where the family's important scions live, as well as the people who serve them. Yet the Yerens would need more than that. Storage for food, granaries for horse feed, and even cleaning sheds for the groundskeepers." Jem's face broke into a smile, and Lauren guessed at his idea just before he gave voice to it. "There will be rooftops, then. There is no one better on rooftops than I. If we can climb the wall, maybe we can travel across the smaller buildings to reach the manors, and without anyone seeing us." Naya's nostrils flared, and she snorted. "Good on rooftops, are you? Mayhap in the city you call home, but you do not know this place."
Hey, beautiful.
Hey.
You want to say hi to stream?
Hi, stream. Babe, I'm kind of frustrated. I can't remember the numbers, the Roman numeral numbers for 51, 6, and 500, and it's making me livid. Do you get it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that a bad joke?
Yeah. That's funny. Oh, God, that feels really good.
Lauren can pick her way through any fort.
Love you.
Lauren can pick her...
What?
Love everything about you.
Okay. Family-friendly stream.
I got the greatest husband.
I have the best wife.
In the muscles.
You do like my workshop muscles, don't
I
you?
do.
All right, get out of here. You're a walking distraction. Get out.
Lauren can pick her way through any forest, even if she has never been there, said Jem. I am the same with cities. He does have a sense for such things, said Lauren. With him to guide me, mayhap I can slip into the Yeren dwellings. You, said Chet. You speak as if you mean to go alone. I am the spy, said Lauren, shrugging. Surely you do not think that all 9 of us can sneak in together. 2 may conceal themselves better than 9, yet 3 are not much more noticeable, and may be much safer if it should come to a fight, said Naya. I will come with you, for you will need someone by your side who will do what is necessary to get back out alive. Lauren thought she heard the meaning behind that. Who will kill, if need be. She met Naya's gaze, but the mystic did not flinch. I should like to come as well, said Chet. Surely one more will not make a difference. But her dream flashed into her mind, and she saw Chet in Gregor's clutches. No, you must remain here. Each person added to the mission only increases the danger. Then let me come instead of Naya, insisted Chet. I can look after you as well as she can. That is not what I said I would do, said Naya. I said I would get her and all of us out alive. You might look after her, but you will not drive steel into a guard's gut if they stand between you and escape. Chet gave her a glare, and she returned it. But before either of them could speak again, Weeth put her hand on the table to draw their attention. The plan all sounds well, she said. But what do you mean to do once you are inside? That is still unclear. We must learn if Damaris is in the city, said Lauren. Surely someone inside will know. You mean to interrogate them? Said Uzo. You will hardly have the time. I do not require much time, said Naya. Her hand dropped to the knife at her waist. If a corpse is found, Damaris will know someone is after her and may flee the city, said Weeth. I said nothing of corpses, said Naya. But if Damaris should learn that we are here, and if she then tries to flee, then so much the better. We can follow her while sending word back to Cal, and the mystics will bring her to bay, removed from the proud manners of her family where her defenses will be strongest. It is harder to shoot a bird in flight than when they are roosting, but when a swallow hides within the earth, it cannot be shot at all, and one must draw it into the open. Annis looked at Lauren across the table. Lauren thought she knew the girl's mind. This was somewhat beyond the orders Cal had given them. Yet Lauren knew of no other way to learn whether Damaris was in the city, and they were running out of time. If Yeren had not already discovered their missing party of guards in the jungle, they soon would. It is decided, then, said Lauren. The rest of you will wait here for our return, and if anything should go wrong, and the 3 of us do not return, you must send word back to Ammon at once. Chet glared into his cup of wine. Chet glared into his cup of wine. Lauren had barely touched hers, but now she threw the rest of it back all at once. Naya smirked. Bolster your courage however you must, Nightblade, and then let us carry out your plan. Lauren thought to herself that, in fact, the plan had been Jem's, but she said nothing, and only returned Naya's smile.
Ba, 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 ba. Oh, oh. It's a good joke. It's a great joke even. But I need you to stop anyway. I really liked that TikTok trend. Chapter 24 done. Ugh.
Chapter 25. Chapter 25. Lauren, Jem, and Naya left the tavern soon afterwards. Chet and Weeth came with them, to provide as much help as they could before the three of them passed beyond the wall. Now that the moons had risen, Dahab was like an explosion of light. Its many lanterns and torches caught on the gold trim that adorned every building, so that the whole place shone nearly as bright as during the day, but warmer, a soft orange glow that wrapped them within itself. yet everything was edged by the blue glow of the moons, and it blended with the firelight to give the buildings an ethereal, magical look. As she marveled at the sight of it, Lauren realized that every torch and lantern was placed to cast its glow on as much of the gold as possible, as if each structure had been built for just that purpose. "Now the whole city glows like a gem," said Jem. He looked up at Lauren, grinning. "I call that a good Lauren, grinning. Lauren, grinning. Lauren, grinning. Lauren, grinning. "I call that a good omen for us, or for me at least." Lauren smiled back, but then her mind turned to her dream, and she saw his face turn savage, his teeth bared as they tore at her throat. Her smile became forced. "I hope so." The streets had begun to clear with the day's end, and they found a section of the wall with almost no one nearby. Just before they climbed up, Chet took Lauren aside for a moment. "You must promise me to return," he said, looking into her eyes. "You must promise..."
Big Pop.
"You must promise me to return," he said, looking into her eyes. "I can make no such promise," said Lauren, "but I promise to try." "That is hardly comforting." Chet glared over her shoulder, and even without turning, Lauren knew his ugly look was for Naya. "Whatever your feelings towards Naya, do not let them blind you." Lauren had to fight to keep her irritation from her voice. "She has proven herself loyal so far." "So far?" said Chet. Lauren put a hand on his cheek. "Dear, dear Chet. Look after Annis. If all goes well, we shall return soon, but if it does not, she will be in greater danger than the rest of you." "I hardly agree," said Chet. "If they catch us, we will be killed. I do not think she faces that fate." But Lauren remembered when last she had faced Damaris in the Great Rocks, and she remembered the merchant's wrath. "Yet she faces her own sort of horror. Look after her." He gave a slow nod. Then he laced his fingers together and knelt. Lauren glanced up the street. Weath had cleared the few passers-by from sight, and she gave a nod. Lauren placed her foot in Chet's grasp and her hands upon the wall. They looked at each other, and he nodded 3 times in quick succession. After the third nod, he heaved upwards, and Lauren jumped. Her fingers seized the top of the wall, and she gripped it tight, bracing her feet against the surface to steady herself. Then, slowly, she pulled herself up to the edge. Cautiously, she raised one eye over the lip of the wall and then ducked back down at once. There was a guard not 3 paces away, walking in Lauren's direction. But the guard's gaze was turned up and outwards over the city, and she took no notice of Lauren's fingers as she passed. Once the footsteps drew away, she pulled herself over. No other guards stood nearby, and so Lauren waved down to Jem and Naya. One by one they followed her. Chet did not look happy to heave Naya up the wall, but he did it, and soon they were all up. There was a rooftop within easy jumping distance, and another beyond that. Indeed, just as Jem had predicted, there seemed to be a route that ran all the way to the bottom of the first manor far ahead. "Better and better," whispered the boy, grinning at them in the moon's light. "Stop prattling and jump," growled Naya. Jem rolled his eyes. He scampered off and made the leap to the first roof, landing cat-like upon the tiles. Lauren feared the sound he would make when he landed, but she heard nothing at all when he came down. When she followed him, she found that the rooftop was very solidly built. They could not have made a noise upon it if they tried. "Stay close, and stop when I do," said Jem, and ran off. He jumped from one rooftop to the next, always lurking in the shadows of higher buildings when he could. Sometimes he would buildings when he could. Buildings.
There you are.
Higher buildings when he could. Sometimes he would turn left or right, though Lauren saw no reason for it, and then a moment later she would see that they had avoided an obstacle they would not have been able to climb over. The boy's skill was marvelous. Truly, he looked at a city the way she did a forest, each one different and yet all of them sharing a common set of rules. Suddenly Jem stopped. Ahead of them was a building with a second story, though there was another roof on their level to the left. "Why do you halt?" said Naya. "This is no time for nerves, whelp." Lauren glared at her before speaking to Jem more patiently. "What is it, Jem?" "I think we must climb this way," said Jem, pointing at the taller building ahead. "That is a waste of time," said Naya. "We should go around." "It is too heavily lit," said Jem. "This way keeps us out of the torchlight from the walls."
All right, I have got to run the kids to the bus real quick. So I'm going to throw on some music by Autumn Orange and do that. I should be back in about 15 minutes. Stay tuned, y'all.
Eventually, he wanted to test our allegiance, and so strangers were brought in, traitors. Disgusting people, traitors to this empire, and we killed them.
What?
Students?
He made you
We wanted,
executioners.
we wanted to be.
What are you hoping to find?
Anybody can make lights. Anybody could send a message through a wire. I want to bend reality to my will. fire.
All right, I'll leave. I'll keep your secret. We'll keep all this a secret. I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of, though. Figure it out in time.
Good night, Beauregard.
Shine bright, circus man.
stars begin to peek out around you. You see shapes and forms of purples and blues, these kind of amorphous clouds that drift by on a scale that you cannot comprehend. Darkened spheres and objects kind of passing you as you drift into nothing, into this void with distant dots of light and sparkle.
Do you know if it's achievable?
begin to grow warm and the hair begin to stand up. While you cannot see, you can still sense your body presence, unmoving but moving so quickly. This dual sensation is conflicting and causing your heart rate to jump. And then there you see this faint gray glow approach and stop. Your speed comes to a slow crawl and then halts.
Father and Mother, I hope I do not let you down.
On your gamble, you failed. You're stupid. Smart as you are, you're stupid with this. She could cave in everything. There's 3 that have been stolen. Yeah, they're nice. 2 of them, one's weird. One of them tried to kill you, the other one, she's adorable, but what do you... What do you expect to do with her? How is she going to help you do what you want to do? She's as much a liability as anything else. You're fucking paranoid, gesticulating this much. You should just go. You have told too much. Told too much. I'm going. It's time to go. My name was Bren Aldrich Elmondrud. Was and that day.
Okay, we back. Okay.
Naya scowled at him, but Lauren spoke first. Very well, up it is. It is a waste of... Naya began. We will waste more time arguing, said Lauren. If Jem says this is the way to go, I believe him. The mystic snorted and turned away. Lauren could not understand her frustration with Jem. She had never seemed fond of the boy, but now it was worse. It seemed fear of discovery was wearing on the woman's nerves. The two-story building was not made of the same granite as the manors, but plaster like the other smaller buildings. There were window ledges and wooden beams to take hold of, and Jem scaled them easily enough. Lauren was not quite so quick, but she followed close behind, and Naya's powerful arms propelled her up easily. At the top, Jem reached up and gripped the edge of the tiles, using them to pull himself to the roof. He lowered a hand and took Lauren's arm as she did the same. But Naya did not wait for Jem's help, instead grabbing one of the tiles on her own. With a clink, the tile came away in Naya's hand. She lurched away from the wall. For an instant it seemed the mystic would fall to the cobblestones far below. But Lauren had just gained the rooftop, and she threw herself flat to seize Naya's hand. The mystic slammed back into the wall with a grunt, while Lauren clung desperately to the roof, trying to keep herself from sliding over. The tile that had come off spun away, shattering as it struck the cobblestones far below. "Hurry," gasped Lauren. Naya got her hand atop the roof, and with Jem's help, Lauren pulled her up. No sooner had they ducked out of sight than they heard a voice on the ground below. They all froze, but it was no shout of panic or alarm. Peeking back over the edge, Lauren saw a solid-looking man in fine green clothes step out the front door of the building atop which they lay. He looked at the tile on the ground for a moment, and then turned his gaze skyward. Lauren retreated just in time. There was a long moment of silence. After her pulse had resumed its normal pace, Lauren risked another peek. The man had gone, and no alarm had been raised. "A stroke of luck, that," said Jem. Lauren looked to Naya. The mystic woman did not look chagrined at her mistake. If anything, she only seemed angrier at Jem. But when he led them to the other end of the roof and helped them climb down, Naya waited patiently and followed his lead as he took them farther along the rooftops. At long last they reached the closest manor. Now that they were up against it, it was even more imposing than it had been when viewed from the streets. The buildings were pressed close here, up to its very walls. There was a window just in front of them, and inside was an empty room with no lights. Lauren reached out to the window, but it would not budge under her hand. "Locked," she muttered. There was another window just a few paces down, but it too was locked. They tried one after another, but without success. Naya muttered a curse. "The family Yeren, it seems, are not all fools. Likely it is one duty of the manor guards to ensure all windows on this level are secure." "The higher floors might be open," said Lauren. "That is my thought. Secure." "Are secure." "The higher floors might be open," said Lauren. "That is my thought," said Naya. "Boy, climb to the next floor and try one of them." But panic seized Lauren's breast, and she shook her head. "No, I will do it." Naya frowned at her. "He is a better climber." Lauren hesitated. In truth, she was already nervous to have brought Jem this close to the manor. Certainly she did not want him to come inside with them. She did not truly believe that her dreams showed her the future, but the thought of Jem in Gregor's hands, or worse, the thought of the boy going mad and attacking her, would not leave her mind. "He should remain here, on guard. If anything goes amiss, he will serve as a lookout and can come to warn us. His purpose here was only to help us reach the manor, after all." To her relief, Naya shrugged. "Very well, but we have tarried too long here already. If you wish to lead the way, then lead. Lauren nodded and looked up. There was a window there and a granite ledge below it, just a pace out of reach. She stepped back and then took a running leap, feet scrabbling on the wall. Her fingers just reached the ledge. From there she was able to pull herself up enough to grip the bottom edge of the windowsill, and then it was a simple matter to stand upon the ledge. She tried lifting the window. It swung open easily, without a sound. "It is open," she whispered down. "Very well," said Naya. Without a glance at Jem, she jumped up and caught the ledge. Lauren slipped into the room, and Naya was not a moment behind her. Lauren leaned back out the window. "Wait here for us," she said to Jem. "If you hear sounds of alarm from within, ready yourself to run. If you think for a moment that you are in danger, flee and do not look back." "I will not leave you here," said Jem. She glared at him. "You will. You have pledged yourself to me, and this is the most solemn order I have ever given you. Do you understand?" He matched her scowl with one of his own, but in the end he nodded. "Good. We will return as quickly as we may." Lauren drew back into the room. Naya stood facing her, a curious expression on her face. The moment's silence stretched a bit too long, and Lauren looked out the window. From this vantage point, the city was laid out before them like a blanket of stars, mirroring those in the sky, except that its light was orange to match the silver blue from above. "A fine sight," said Naya in a careful tone. "I suppose so," said Lauren. In truth, the city only filled her with dread, for she could not see it without seeing her dream. Naya inclined her head, inserting herself into Lauren's field of view. "I meant to say, earlier, during the fight in the jungle, you saw my wound." Lauren blinked at her for a moment, uncomprehending. Then she remembered the terrible scars at Naya's throat. "Yes." The mystic searched her eyes, but then she shrugged with a humorless smile. "I hide it behind this collar. I think it is hideous to look at, and some others have agreed. Few of us go through life without wounds, and many of them scar. I am only amazed that you survived such an injury. It looks as though your throat was cut more than once." Naya's face turned a deep, angry red, and Lauren balked. "I am sorry. I did not mean to bring forth a grievous memory." "Grievous indeed," said Naya, though she sounded more angry than mournful, "and impossible to forget." "You should not let it trouble you," said Lauren. "You cannot help the scar, and anyone who remarks upon it is not worth worrying about." "That is more easily said than believed." Lauren frowned and turned her gaze out the window again. She wished... "That is more easily said than believed."
Clicky click. Oh boy.
Easily said than believed. Lauren frowned and turned her gaze out the window again. She wished she were anywhere but in this city. Her fear seemed to grow with every passing moment, and as much as she longed to find Damaris lurking within this place, at the same time she dreaded the thought that she might. "Naya, there is something dangerous here." Lauren paused. She had not meant to speak at all. The words had come out almost against her will. But as Naya looked at her, she pressed on heedlessly. "I think Damaris is here. I am almost certain of it. And worse, there is a man, her bodyguard, a man named Gregor. He is dangerous, maybe more dangerous than anyone I have faced in my travels, and—" Without warning, Naya seized her shoulders and kissed her. The second their lips met, Lauren's worries vanished into sparks of bliss. Her own hands rose to Naya's waist, though she did not mean to move them. More than a month of desire was now finally real, and she only wanted all the city to fade away, and all the world beyond it as well. And then she remembered Chet, waiting for her in a tavern just beyond the wall. She pulled back, pushing Naya away. "No," she said quietly. "Clearly I have not spoken plainly enough. I love Chet, and I have told you I do not care for love, nor desire it," said Naya, wearing a self-satisfied smile. "And you seem far less convinced of your words than the last time you said them. I do not regret it. You deserved a kiss, and likely needed one as well." "Did," thought Lauren, but she
It is about the yearning.
as well. "I did," thought Lauren, but she shook her head. "You could hardly have chosen a worse time." Naya sighed and rolled her eyes, though her smile did not leave her. "Very well. Until another time, then. In the meanwhile, let us go and find a merchant."
Right. Chapter 25 done. Hurdy-gurdy birdie football. Right. All right, that is opening up. I got to use the restroom real quick. Be right back.
Chapter 20. Chapter 26. They listened at the room's door for a long moment, but could hear no sound in the hallway beyond. Lauren opened it cautiously and poked her head outside. There was no one in sight. She slipped out of the room and Naya followed. At the end of the hall, they found a stairway and took it up to the next floor. Lauren waved Naya back and peeked down the hallway, but it was as empty as the first, and the rooms looked all the same. "Not here," she said. "Let us go up another..." She said, "Let us go up another floor." "Why?" said Naya. "What are you looking for?" Lauren thought back to Damaris's room at the Wormwing Inn in Cabras. It had fairly glowed in its opulence, a wide and spacious place with drapes and fine furniture. "We seek Damaris, or someone of similar stature who would know where she is. These floors are filled with small drawing rooms and apartments, doubtless for the servants, or may up only for storage. If I know the family Yeren, the higher we go, the more important will be the people who dwell there." So they ascended. At each landing, Lauren inspected the hall beyond. Her guess was right. Upon each level, the doors lessened in number, and soon they were worked with fine designs in gold. But they had not climbed much higher before they heard the tramp of heavy boots coming down the stairs towards them. "Into the hall," whispered Lauren. They ducked around the corner of the stairwell door just in time. After the steps passed, Lauren and Naya poked their heads back out. They saw 4 Yeren guards. They saw They saw 4 Yeren guards, who soon vanished around the next curve in the stairs. "We should expect to see more of them from this point on, I think," said Lauren. But Naya smiled at her. "Did you not see them? Within the manor, they have closed helmets." At first, Lauren did not understand, but after a moment, she matched Naya's grin with one of her own. The next hallway up was not empty. They saw a pair of guards within it, walking together away from the stairwell. They had little time to lose before the guards would be out of sight. After nodding to each other, they ran silently up behind. Each threw an arm around one of the guards' necks. Naya bore her opponent to the ground and squeezed until she fell unconscious. But Lauren's guard almost slipped from her grasp. He struggled mightily, reaching for a dagger at his belt. Lauren caught his wrist, struggling to twist his arm behind him. Naya rose and drove a fist into the guard's stomach. He doubled over. Snatching his helmet away, Naya brought it crashing down on the back of his head. Finally, he collapsed to the floor. "Easy enough," said Lauren, panting. Naya snorted. They found an empty room and left the guards trussed up within, tied with some drapes they tore from the windows. Lauren used her hunting knife to cut 2 strips of the cloth into gags. They had already stripped the guards of their uniforms and put them on over their own clothes, including the helmets. The guards had gloves, too, so that no bit of their skin was exposed. "Your clothes are a better fit than mine," said Naya, squeezing her hands into the gloves. "I cannot help my lithe figure," said Lauren with a smirk. Naya eyed her. "Nor should you." That turned Lauren's cheeks a deep red, and she chastised herself. She must try to control her tongue and not encourage Naya in her advances. Lauren folded her black cloak and shoved it underneath her chainmail and leather shirt. It gave her the appearance of a paunch. Naya abandoned her own brown cloak in favor of the guard's green one. They made their way back to the stairwell with more confidence and climbed 2 more floors without seeing anyone else. On the 3rd story up, they ran into another pair of guards escorting a merchant. At first, Lauren thought to walk straight past them, pretending to be about their own business. Then she saw Naya draw aside. She did the same at the last moment, and they stood at attention as the merchant passed them by. The other guards gave them a brief glance, but the merchant did not even appear to notice they were there, and soon he was out of sight around the corner. "Remember that we are guards, and therefore servants," said Naya. "I will not forget again. You have some skill in subterfuge." Though she could not see it beneath the helmet, Lauren heard a fierce smile in Naya's voice. "I prefer a knife, but deception will serve in a pinch. Should we pursue the ones we just passed? He was a merchant. Mayhap he would know something." Lauren considered it for a moment, but then shook her head. "We would have to fight the guards and would be too exposed while we did so. We should look for one in the hallways, not the stairwell, and follow them to a room where they may be subdued without witnesses." They began to inspect the halls more carefully. They walked the entirety of each floor, striding with impunity as though they were on an errand. Their surroundings began to grow more elaborate. Now even the side tables in the halls were well carved, and the sconces for the torches were wrought with intricate designs. No one else, guard or merchant, spared them so much as a glance. Lauren was reminded again of when she and Jordell had pulled this very trick in the Great Rocks. For a painful moment, she wished he was here now. Though Naya was a competent enough companion, she was no replacement. On the next floor, they passed by someone alone, a wizened merchant in a fine green dress. As soon as she saw the woman coming, Lauren started, and only just managed to keep herself from coming to an abrupt halt in the middle of the hallway. Once they were alone again, Naya stopped and turned to her. "What is wrong? Who was that?" "Her face. I remember it from somewhere." And then it came to her in a flash. "Her name is Gretchen. She kept Damaris's accounts. I saw her when I first met the merchant, and Annis as well." "We will not find a better target than that," said Naya. "And we have spent too long in this place already. Who knows but that the guards we subdued have awoken and are struggling free from their bonds even now. Bonds even. From their bonds even now. They turned and went hastily back the way they had come, and soon they could see Gretchen just ahead of them. The woman reached the stairwell and went up to the next floor. Naya and Lauren followed close behind. In the hallway, Gretchen entered the second door on her left, closing it behind her with a soft click. Lauren and Naya stopped just outside it and looked at each other. And looked at each other. And looked at each and looked. And looked.
Gonna have to live with that one.
Sided and looked at each other. "There might be guards inside," said Lauren. "There might not," said Naya, "and we are out of time." She opened the door before Lauren could answer and strode confidently inside. With little other choice, Lauren followed, but inside, they both froze. They were in a sitting room. In the center was a small table surrounded by plush chairs, upon one of which Gretchen now sat. There were no guards in the room, but there was one other person, a young man with dark hair and a scar that split his chin. Hewell. Gretchen and Hewell looked up the moment the door opened. When Lauren and Naya paused, Gretchen and Hewell looked up the moment the door opened. When Lauren and Naya paused, Gretchen frowned. "What is it?" Her voice was a shrill bark, like a small dog that thought itself a mastiff. "Are you lost?" Lauren could not think of what to say. Thankfully, Naya's wits were quicker. "No, my lady," she said, deepening her voice to disguise it. She pushed the door shut and took a step into the room. Lauren followed. "Only we have been sent with orders. It appears the two of you may be in grave danger." The old woman's brows flew skywards. "Us? This is the Golden Manor, you twit. What possible danger could there—" But Lauren saw Hewell's eyes go wide and he shot to his feet. Naya was quicker, lunging forwards and tackling the man to the ground. Lauren went for Gretchen, clapping a hand over her mouth and seizing her arm as she tried to rise. Naya and Hewell wrestled for a moment, but she was stronger and held him down while she drew her knife. She held the point of it under his chin. "Be still, Weremage," she said. If I see the slightest glow in your eyes, I will plunge this into your brain. I know you cannot heal that wound away." Keeping one hand over Gretchen's mouth, Lauren reached up to remove her helmet. When it came off, Gretchen's eyes narrowed, and then when it came off, When it came off, Gretchen's eyes narrowed, and then in a moment they shot wide. She screamed something, but the words were muffled under Lauren's hand. "Yes, Gretchen." Lauren gave her a grim smile. "It has been a long time. We have questions for you, and you would do well to answer them." Hewell was nearly spitting with rage. "How?" he said. "How did you find me here?" "You can never escape the Nightblade, Weremage," said Lauren. "Remember that well." He does not need to know that we did not come here looking for him, she thought. It would have made her laugh out loud if the situation had been less serious. Hewell snorted. "I suppose Cal's spies are not so incompetent as I had believed." Struck by a thought, Lauren raised her brows. "Oh, do you think you deceived Cal? You were mistaken. He has known of your deception a long time and played you for a fool all the while." Joy coursed through her as she saw his face grow pale, but then he calmed himself and snorted. "You lie. Cal knew nothing, or he would have been more careful with his secrets. If you could hear only half the things I know about him and his precious order." Despite her best efforts to remain calm, dread seized Lauren's heart at his words. But Naya pressed her dagger harder against his skin. He went quiet. Lauren saw a small drop of blood appear at the tip of the dagger. "Be silent, wizard," said Naya. "We seek Damaris. If you wish to live, you will tell us where she may be found. In fact, I offer the two of you this chance. Whichever one of you tells us where Damaris is hiding may live. I will take great pleasure in bleeding the other one all over this fine rug." Hewell glared at her, but Gretchen's eyes went wide with terror. "Do you wish to volunteer?" said Lauren. She took her hand away from Gretchen's mouth, but dropped it to her throat. "Speak, but if you try to scream, I will throttle you." "I have nothing to say to you, ungrateful wretch." Gretchen tried to spit at her, but the saliva only splashed out on her own chin. "I told Damaris she should have killed you." "Mayhap she should have," said Lauren. "But now she never shall, for I mean to bring her before the king's justice. Tell me where she is, and I will see that justice is lenient upon you." "She is far away from you," hissed Gretchen. Lauren frowned. "She is not here in Dahab, then?" Gretchen snapped her mouth shut at once, but Lauren could see the fear in her eyes and knew it for the truth. What, then, had her dream shown her? She had seen Damaris here in this very city. If that was a lie, then why was Hewell here? Why had she been allowed to see that he was a weremage, or that he would be in this city at all? Her thoughts were drifting, and she forced herself back to the present. She would have to worry about these things later. Now Naya put her face closer to Hewell's, sneering at him. "The old woman has been the most helpful so far," she said. "You had best contribute something to the conversation, lest I grow bored of you." Hewell only glared. Naya shrugged and turned back to Gretchen. "Very well. He does not seem forthcoming. Say on, old woman, and my friend and I will leave you be." Lauren saw Gretchen hesitate, her throat working. "Do not scream," warned Lauren. "She is far away," said Gretchen. "Far from here." "You have said as much already," said Naya. "Tell us more." "A fortress, far to the west, too strong for you fools to break into." Naya clutched Hewell's throat tighter and turned the dagger on Gretchen, holding it just under the woman's eye. "What is it called? Where may it be found?" Gretchen squirmed under Lauren's hands, trying to edge away from the knife. "Yawamba! It is Yawamba! It... A moment too late, Lauren saw the flash of light in Hewell's eyes. He slapped Naya's hand away and sprang, and as he moved, great claws of bone shot from his hands. But he did not attack Naya nor Lauren. He plunged the knife-like claws into Gretchen's throat and chest. One of them sliced open the back of Lauren's hand, and she recoiled in pain. Hewell did not press his attack, but jumped back and away from them both. Naya flipped her knife around, but Hewell flung a chair at her just as she threw it, and the blade went wide. Gretchen collapsed on the couch, blood spurting from her throat to cover Lauren's chainmail. "The window!" cried Lauren, but she was not fast enough. Hewell turned and flung himself into the window, curling his body into a ball. The glass burst outwards with a great crash. The glow of Hewell's eyes grew brighter. In a heartbeat he was gone, and a crow flew away into the night, cawing madly. Lauren seized Gretchen's shoulders, trying to sit her up so that she did not drown in her own blood. "Leave her," said Naya. "She is dead already." It was true. A spark of life remained in the woman's terror-filled eyes, but already it was fading. Lauren gritted her teeth and stood back, pressing her sliced hand hard into her sleeve to stanch the flow of blood. Naya went to the window and looked down. "Guards heard the window breaking," she said. "It is time we left." "But we do not know where this Yawamba is," said Lauren. "We can discover that later, or so I hope. I am covered in blood. I cannot walk out of here like this, for they will know that something is amiss." Naya's eyes grew narrow as she studied Lauren. For a long, curious moment, Lauren felt that she was being judged, as though Naya weighed one grim option against another. Then the mystic's face relaxed. "Well, I hope you do not expect me to leave you here. We have a mission to find Damaris, you and I will not let you abandon it so easily." That forced a laugh from Lauren. "Then I hope you have an idea." "Mayhap we can follow our quarry," said Naya, tossing her head towards the window. "Only we cannot fly, and shall have to climb." Lauren went to the window and leaned out to look down. "It is a long way." "Not so long as the stairwell, if we must fight our way down. And I do not think you will be much use if it comes to swords, which it surely will." "You are correct," said Lauren. "Very well. These outfits will no longer help us." Quickly they shed their guard uniforms, and Lauren donned her black cloak once more. From Naya's discarded cloak, she cut a strip of cloth and tied it around the cut on her hand. She lifted the window to climb out. "A moment," said Naya, seizing her cloak and drawing her back. "You have proven to be something of a lure that summons luck. You found Hewell when we did not even seek him. We shall need more of that luck if we are to escape. I think you should give me another kiss." For a moment, Lauren could not believe her own ears. "Before was not the time for such idiocy, and now is even less so." Naya only widened her eyes in mock fear. With two hands clasped to her heart, she simpered, "Without your luck, I fear even to attempt the climb." Lauren wanted to strike her, but in her mind's eye she could almost see the guards who even now must surely be rushing up the tower towards them. She darted forwards and gave Naya a brief kiss, and then slapped her shoulder hard. And then slapped her shoulder hard. "For your stupidity." "A small price to pay," said Naya, and climbed out the window.
It is about the yearning. we even on? Chapter 26, right? Yeah. All right, quick restroom. Coffee's hitting hard this morning. Ugh. 27. Here we come.
Chapter 27. The way was slow, and Lauren felt horribly vulnerable on the outside of the building. As she climbed, she kept a careful eye out for Huel. In bird form, it would be easy for the Weremage to spot them and warn the Yeren soldiers, but no crow wheeled in the sky. Huel must have flown to the... But no crow... But no crow wheeled in the sky. Huel must have flown to the ground and entered the Golden Manor from there, hoping to catch them on the stairwell. As luck had it, they came down not far from where they had left Jem. The boy jumped across 2 rooftops to join them before they reached the bottom. By that time, the whole compound rang with shouts of alarm and the sound of tramping boots. Jem stared at them both in wide-eyed wonder. "By the sky above, what did the 2 of you do in there? You have mustered an army." "Time enough for that later," said Lauren. "Now it is time for running." Run they did, with Jem leading the way across the rooftops once more. This time he did not suggest they climb the higher building. He took them in a dead sprint around it, and then he cut right, running straight for the wall. Lauren skidded to a halt. "Jem, this way is exposed." "Every way is exposed now. You have kicked the anthill." He was right. Guards ran all along the wall. They were mustering to move through the compound in rank and file, searching for the intruders. The quickest way was safest now. The wall was close. There were 2 guards straight ahead. Just before the 3 of them reached the last rooftop, the guards spotted them. Lauren slowed in her run, but Naya sped past her. "No time," said the mystic, and she made the leap. One of the guards raised his sword, but she caught his wrist, wrenching him to the side and clearing a space for Lauren and Jem to land beside her. With her other hand, she struck the guard hard in the throat, and as he choked for breath, she pushed him back over the wall. He fell to the street beyond. Pushed him back.
Big ol' poppy pop.
For breath, she pushed him back over the wall. He fell to the street beyond with a scream, which ended abruptly as he struck the cobblestones. The other guard came for Lauren, who sidestepped the woman's wild swing and shoved Jem away. They were pressed close together now, giving no time to think. Lauren lunged and slammed the crown of her head into the guard's nose where it was exposed by the helmet. She felt it snap with a wet crunch. The guard fell upon her back, stunned. Lauren shook away the spots in her eyes. "Over!" she cried, and nearly flung Jem off the ramparts. But she caught his hands and stooped over the edge, lowering him as far as she could before she let him go. He landed well and rolled away, and Lauren hopped over after him. An arrow sailed through the air above her, and she flinched, losing her grip before she meant to. She almost landed straight on her ankles, and only just managed to roll with the impact. Her tailbone came down hard, and she groaned as she regained her feet. A moment later, Naya came crashing down beside her, turning over and over as she rolled across the street. "Get up," said Jem, pulling on her arm. "They are almost upon us." He dragged Lauren to her feet and tried to flee with her, but Lauren went to Naya and hauled her up. The mystic's ankle had twisted, and she limped when she tried to walk. Lauren threw an arm around her and half-dragged her away from the wall. They passed the body of the guard Naya had thrown over. Lauren tried to ignore it. Mayhap he was still alive, but Lauren thought she would feel better if she did not know for certain. They ducked into the first alley they saw, and Jem led them around 2 different turns before they came upon a well-populated street. "Which way to the others?" said Lauren. "This way," said Jem. "At least, I think so. You do not remember? Growled Naya. He frowned at her. Do you? Then follow me. And off he ran. Lauren pulled Naya after him, trying to ignore the woman's grumbling. Jem was right in his guess after all, and soon they reached the tavern. Chet and Uzo were waiting outside, and Chet's face was nearly chalk white. But it flushed with color again when he saw Lauren, and he ran forwards to help with Naya. What happened? He said in a low voice. Half of the city seems to be in an uproar. Why does everyone want an explanation while danger still looms? Said Lauren. Get the others out of there. We should ride as far from this place as we can. Let us find an inn on the other side of the city. They all made ready to leave. Lauren went to help Naya up on her horse. I am not badly hurt, said Naya, scowling at her. It was only a little turn. Do not act only a little turn. It was only a little turn. Do not act so surly when I am only trying to help you, said Lauren. It would seem I am not so lucky as you thought. Yet I am alive, and I have the memory of you kissing me by your own choice. Lauren's eyes went wide, and she looked over her shoulder. But Chet was a few paces away, tending to his saddle, and had not heard. She leaned in closer. I would rather you did not speak of it. Naya grinned at her. Is that an order, Nightblade? It is. You can mount your horse on your own. Lauren went to Midnight and climbed into the saddle. She took no small pleasure in seeing Naya struggle to do the same. They rode off, south and away from the Yeren Manors. No one gave them a second glance, yet still Lauren felt as though eyes were upon her. She drew up her hood to hide her face, and kept a wary lookout for anyone wearing green. When they had almost reached the city's southern wall, they found an inn with a sizable stable, and there they pulled to a halt. See to the horses and meet us within, Naya told Shiun and Jormund. Then she turned to Lauren. I could use a drink, and you deserve one.
Hey, baby.
I'm leaving you.
Oh, no.
I'll be back tonight.
After all this... Oh. Well, I suppose that's not so bad then.
I guess we vote tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to take my ballot with me. Probably do it. Oh, no, I mean, I guess I'm coming home for lunch, so I'll just do it at lunch.
I'm going to try not to come home for lunch.
Okay.
Because it just saves me so much time.
Do you want to just take your ballot with you then?
Yeah, I'll take it with me.
But don't take the information pamphlet, because...
You need it.
Yeah.
I'll Google it.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to do dinner with the wives.
Okay.
Yes, we have wives.
No, especially not after the business registration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you register?
I did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Love you. Megan Robinson.
Bye.
Though Lauren was still irritated with the mystic, she could not deny that a cup of wine sounded like the finest thing in the world. Once inside, they ordered food and drink and had it brought to a table near the back, out of view of the front door. The moment they found their seats, Weeth leaned forwards. Did they recognize you? She said. Will they follow you, or trace this back somehow? Yes, said Lauren. Hewell was there. He saw me plainly, and must have guessed who Naya was under her helmet. Uzo smirked. I am sure you have heard this before, but your green eyes leave you ill-suited to life as a spy. It was not Lauren's fault. Naya and Chet said the words at the same time. They glared at each other for a long moment before turning away. Very well, said Weeth. What did you learn? Lauren looked around, conscious that there could be ears listening in any corner. The one we seek is not in the city. She resides in a fortress, a place called Yawamba, far to the west of here. Then we have what we came for, said Weeth. We should make ready to leave. I suggest we spend one night here, for we are all weary from the road, and the three of you need rest even more. But we should ride before first light. Uzo and Jormund can buy us supplies for the journey back to Ammon. Thank goodness, said Chet. "Even on this side of the city, I cannot shake my fear that we could be found at any moment." But Lauren remained silent. Then she realized that Naya, too, had yet to answer. Their gazes locked across the table. Jem looked back and forth between the two of them with wide eyes. "Oh, darkness take us," muttered the boy. "We are going to Yawamba," said Naya. Chet gawked at her. "We certainly are not. We are going back to Ammon to bring our news to Cal." "Cal will receive his news," said Lauren quietly. "We will send someone with a letter. Jormund, I think." For a moment it seemed Chet thought she was joking, for a grin played at his lips, coming and then fading again. It was the face of someone trying to understand a joke, and it pained Lauren to see it. But when she did not smile in turn, he shook his head slowly. "You cannot be serious. Lauren, you are not this foolish." "She is far from foolish," said Naya. "She is wiser than you are, at any rate. We have waited for weeks, months in fact, for an opportunity to bring our enemies to heel. Now we have such a chance, but it will not last long, for Hewell will surely send word of what has happened here tonight, and then our target will hide herself in another dark hole. I will not waste our opportunity, and neither will the Nightblade." Chet and Weeth both began to speak, but Lauren cut them off with a raised hand. "Naya is correct. We left Ammon to accomplish a purpose." "That purpose was information," said Chet. "Information leading to a capture," said Lauren. "But if we do not act on what we know, that will never happen. If we had learned that the one we seek was in some outland kingdom, some place like Hedgemond, that would be one thing. But this fortress, wherever it is, lies far to the west. If we ride the long distance back to Ammon to tell Cal what we have learned, and then devise a plan, and then set out after her, weeks will have passed. Even if winter ends tomorrow, and not a single storm troubles us the whole while, the chance to catch Damaris will have vanished." "So you would rather ride west without any plan at all," said Chet. "You understand, I hope, why I see little wisdom in that." "We will devise our plan upon the road," said Naya. "That is how commanders in the field are supposed to act." Chet seemed to sense that he was losing, for his frustration grew more plain with every word. "But you do not even know where you are going," he said, spreading his hands into the empty air. "This fortress you speak of could be anywhere." Lauren looked to Annis. The girl had remained silent through the whole argument, staring into her own lap. "Annis." The girl jumped. "What?" "You know where it is." Annis's eyes went wide, and she looked around at them. "I do not know precisely where it is. Yet there is... That is, when I was with Cal and we studied the maps and the records, there was a place, something I took note of. It was to the west of here, and it was like a sort of hole. To the west of here, and it was like... And it was like a sort of hole, but for coin. No roads passed through it. There were no cities, only mountains. Yet all around it, numbers disappeared from ledgers without explanation. Garrisons marched from fortresses to reinforce some other stronghold, but that place was never named. Food and other supplies all went missing, and I have heard the name of Yawamba before. It was spoken in the halls of my family. It is a place we called home in the past, a long-abandoned fortress of great power." At the words long-abandoned fortress, Lauren felt her hackles rise. She saw the image from her dream again. Damaris standing in a vast cavern, bathed in a single pool of light. Quickly she pushed the image away. Chet was at a loss for a moment, but he recovered, planting a hand on the table and shaking his head. "No, this is madness, all of it. You made a vow to Cal. Will you break it?" "I vowed that I would take no action against our target in Dahab," said Lauren. "And I will obey that vow to the letter." You know that is not what he meant. I must agree with Chet, said Weeth. Riding out on our own seems foolhardy. It is, said Lauren, and I will not ask you to come with me. I'm no fool. I know this goes directly against Cal's wishes. You risk his wrath if you accompany me. Neither, Chet, would I ask you to follow me into darkness and danger. I did not do so in Northwood, and I will not now. But I am going to Yawamba. Always I have done what I thought was best. Sometimes that brought great sorrow, and not just for myself. But it is also the only reason we know as much as we know. It is the reason the High King is prepared to fight this war in the first place. Before we left the seat, she told me that the 9 kingdoms were more important than any of us. I still believe that, and this is what I must do to preserve them, and to mete out justice for a friend who fell before his time. Were Jordell here, I think he would do the same. That cast most of them into silence, but Chet glared into his lap and shook his head. You speak of justice, but I hear revenge behind your words. Then go to Ammon, said Lauren. Indeed, I would feel better if you did. There is no doubt that I ride upon the more dangerous path. Turn your road from mine, and take the children with you. Not likely, said Jem. I go where you go. The children with the road from mine, and take the Turn your road from mine. Not likely, said Jem. I go where you go, as I have always done. Well, since we met. I will not turn away either, said Annis quietly. I cannot say with honesty that this is a wise course, but I think it is the right one, and I must follow it. For the same reason I came with you this far already, though I do not know what help I will be. You have been tremendous help already, said Lauren. We would not even know where we were going were it not for you. Do you see? Wit above might. Annis smiled at her, and beside the girl, Chet shook his head and sighed, even as his scowl deepened. Of course I will not abandon you now, Lauren, he murmured. Not ever, not while I draw breath. But my fear is not for myself, not for the others. It is for you, Lauren. I do not wish to follow you only to witness your doom. Weeth looked as though she wished to say a great deal more, but when she gave Naya a searching look, the captain's expression remained unmoved. Very well, said Weeth, lowering her gaze. I will send the others out for supplies. We can be ready to ride by first light.
Chapter 27. Do I have enough time for chapter 28? I might not. Oh, I definitely do not. Chapter 28 is a long-ass chapter. Oh, which means that is the end of today's stream. Who are you going to throw the tiniest raid to? Be silent. All right. Hey, Morning Vale. The writing goes well. We did a bunch of chapters today of audiobook. Yes, the writing today looks like audiobooking. Yeah, we got through 4 chapters this morning, and this book is a bunch of chunky long chapters too. So that feels nice. However, I do have to run off to work, so I am going to kick it over to Critical Bard, who we love very much. Fantastic video game streamer and also TTRPG creator. And just one of the most delightfully sassy presences on the internet. Chunky long chapters is my favorite flavor of ice cream. Absolutely. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day too, Vale. We are how many chapters past? Yes, we're 4 chapters past the halfway point. I still intend to come do a little more work when I come home tonight, because I still want to catch up. I still have some catching up to do. So I will work on that. But in the meantime, thank you for everybody who came and hung out today. Thank you, Vale. Thank you, Green. Thank you, Erica. And anybody else that I missed. Peace out, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Man, them a get buck wild when the thing go crazy.